Welcome back, fellow gamers. This is Gamer1745. Welcome back, I guess, to my morass in the Soviet Union here, as it has become. We have this god-awful situation here. I'd be firing the general in charge of this. Military power. Defense in depth advance. That is a good tech to have, especially since we're going on defense. Where's it? It's right here. I think we'll let that continue. To research more. Air superiority tactics have advanced. There's also another good one to continue to fight Soviet air power. Let's see how this battle goes here. You're a very weak force. Looks like we're getting some air support from Hungary. We're just a bunch of policemen, but they have supposedly zero organization. It should make them retreat. Uh-oh. Revolt in Norway. Oh, well, we're lucky this time. We got the organization Tote up here right on scene before they can organize themselves. And crush them, hopefully. Organization Tote was a construction organization, but they did have a security role, mostly, I would say, as well as a direct military type, or more than a direct military type role. And they were made up of Germans as well as, shall we say, locals. They recruited local labor by, recruiting posters. Join us. We'll pay you to work construction. That kind of recruiting, as well as, shall we say, elements of forced labor. There was that going on as well too. And when I say elements, there were certain nations were given quotas for volunteering labor, like France, volunteering labor for the Reich, or Reich, still not sure which is the best pronunciation, but I don't have an ear there. And they had to meet their labor quotas. Germany and France, we're talking sort of the occupied / Vichy government, because it varied at different times, would like volunteer workers, and a lot of them, men, women, got a job working in Germany, and they were assigned housing, and when they were paid, they had ration books. I'm sure they were under close scrutiny, but they were just foreign laborers. If they didn't have enough volunteers, they would start drafting, especially in the West. Now we're talking in the West now. In the West, it was mostly sort of conscripted or drafted laborers, including local laborers, and sometimes short-term, for building things like the West Wall, submarine pens. And they were under a conscription kind of situation. It's a forced labor, no doubt. I'm not trying to minimize it, but it was that type of stuff, and to the point that if it's nearby your home, or you could go home at night, but you had to show up for work. It's that type. And then if you lived here, they might temporarily house you over here, but you understand what I'm saying. There was also prisoner of war labor. There were just rounding up people, not like former soldiers at war, but other, and just getting into slave labor. Some, especially if you're dealing with the Jewish situation, they were trying to work them to death. They, get some labor out of them as they slowly killed them. I'm sure some of the bad food levels and things was just because Germany was short on food. Some of it was that, and this is the ugly part of this war that we normally just keep up as a interesting historical situation. But they did have the and so they didn't have enough food for Germany, so people were working to death, give them even less food. But they were still trying to work them to death. Had Germany had more food, they probably would have given, the Jewish and other people like that more food, but they were still planning on working them to death. Then there were other Slavic peoples or other peoples just generally from the East. They may have not been quite as blatantly trying to work them to death, but they were trying to feed them the minimum amount of food that you can to keep them alive and force them to do labor. I watched a show some time ago on the Channel Islands that covered, slave labor that was brought into the Channel Islands to help fortify it and things, and other military type construction on the Channel Islands. And these were definitely slave labor and not just conscripted labor, which is a different category as I see it, at least. So Organization Todt, as part of this, had security elements that controlled this labor. It started out purely as a German organization building the Autobahn, and then grew into the West Wall, and then they got a lot of foreign, including armed foreigners that were sympathetic to the German cause. And they, had low-level combat, anti-partisan type combat roles, but they were also dealing in conscripted and forced labor. And contracted labor in the sense of hiring a Norwegian company to build something, and that the Norwegian company hired local Norwegians to work on the construction project. I mean, there's all levels, but they were part of the problem, if you will, with dealing with National Socialist Germany and their bad behavior. Just because they weren't anywhere, to my knowledge, well, no, they were involved in some of the work situations that were working Jews to death, particularly late 44, 45 in Germany for some of the V programs and those elements. What the? Oh, those are all bombers or something. Aircraft attacking. That's why the stack group is so big. Okay, so we've lost that province. This is sticking out like a sore thumb. For the moment, we're going to keep it. They're attacking this one, but we're doing well holding it. Well, I don't know if you're hearing this over the microphone, but the gardeners are back outside. I thought I had waited until they finished. as you can see, we're building up heavily because we have the manpower. Fortunately, we're not super draining our manpower in fruitless combat. When I say super draining, and I know we're draining it somewhat, but we are building fighters. And this is partially because, as we know, this series isn't going to go long, so will we get to February or January 43? Maybe, but I don't think so. But it's what I would, to some degree, be building, and I've turned off longer term production, new stuff. Obviously, we're not going to get these in 44. We're not going to be around that long. I sort of like what they've done, and we'll see how well it works. They've moved these into event-driven things instead of you build them. But so we're building fighter aircraft to control the skies, because we don't want to lose this control of the skies to either the American bombers in the west or the Soviet fighters interrupting our transport planes and our bombers in the east, and infantry to hold the line. So we're building up both of those. Mentioning our fighter situation in the east. Let's make sure we have a few of them operating here. The ones that are in fairly good shape. Too beat up and need to rest. You're in a moderate state, so we'll put you in. We have a limited number of operational fighters here. I don't want them to have free reign. We already have bad enough national unity from bombing. So these guys up to make sure that we can here. Let's I don't know what we can get in range of those, but these guys could be supplying them. These guys are all close enough so they're getting supplied from their port. We'll supply. Uh-oh, we lost. Organization tote. Lost organization. Let's see if these guys can do it. Well, at least the mud is working against the Soviets somewhat as well. We're almost getting back up to zero descent so that we'll get all those, at least most of those ICs back to production. Okay, artillery unit combined arms has advanced. Research or training, or however you want to call it, that Such a tough armor. Well, let's build some light forces as well. These will come pretty quick. Get out there, protect our sea lanes. Because they are. Because if you look at that aspect, we are doing, I mean, obviously we're bogging down in a morass here. That I'm not going to try to make anything else out of it like it's some great victory. I can talk about how the various, that's very true, how the various effects, decision-based effects to simulate history, make things easier, make things harder, base it off of historical events, did all fire sort of wonky, so that did affect it, but we are in a morass. So we have, and we're just, we're not even operating in here. Well, I'm gonna patrol. So that we're protecting these supply lines. Obviously the med is our lake, but we've got supply lines coming out to here. So we got a lot to protect. Now we're doing still fairly well in our commerce rating. And it's spread out around the ocean, so we're still keeping Britain and to some degree America on a bit of a leash, though. Looks like all my submarines are back in port somewhere. When you see empty red, that means the submarines have decided that, because we're on low levels of aggressiveness, I don't know where they've gone. If they were sunk, destroyed, here they are. If they were destroyed, they would stop operating, but they'll go back to a friendly port and reorganize, repair until they think they can go back out. Okay, looks like we won this little pocket. And remove the Hungarian objective, hopefully not to overly confuse the AI. Let's take a look at this flag. So we can pull out. This is that still ugly scar into there. That's bad. We're retreating here, and I'm letting this be a bit of a fight. Hold that against the one general here. This is what's the province of this? Smolensk is going to be our anchor point here because it's a fortified position. Even if they were, as long as they don't cut it off, so long as we can hold it. I mean, we might have to go back to this river, but so long as we can hold here and then hold here, even if they push us back a little bit, this will be a good anchor point. And this river here, I would like to make more inroads here. I don't know if we'll see through this winter. Here, how bad are they? Well, they're about run out of organization. Let's see if we attack them again. I know it's bad weather, but the idea is attack them when they're under low organization levels. in. We also got a couple of, yeah, a bunch of fighters, but let's get to one division here. Let's put them a little ways back, let them get organized. Up. I'm picking defensive commanders just because I think that's what their role for some time will be of these new infantry units. But these are fairly good divisions. Over 12,000 men strong, artillery, anti-tank, reconnaissance, anti-aircraft, engineers. So they'll be a reasonably formidable force. They're just about done. Okay, just a weak setting there for that one division. We'll let this build for a little bit. Yay! Oh, we also need steel. Let's add 2 torpedo boats and 2 submarines to the production list as well. Oh, we get another chance to upgrade Totenkopf. See, it was last I saw it was moving. Here. Well, might as well do it now. We're opening from the Totenkopf division to the Panzer division. Oh god, I hate this. I thought I killed all these, but I guess it's still around. The photo isn't bad. It's quite possibly Totenkopf. It's definitely SS troopers. This patch, though, it's a Fourth Reich or fantasy patch, and it's also a crappy, stupid, cheapy baseball patch. No, I mean, God, the guys were evil as hell, but they had quality uniform equipment, accoutrements, and it just offends me. So I'm offended by that image. I know it's a particular thing, but just that's for being a uniform collector. I gave up collecting German uniforms long time ago because I couldn't tell a good fake, or even a mildly good fake from real enough that I got burned a few too many times. Okay, well these are fully well organized, so I'm glad I did that. We're going to send them up here. So things like that affect what I make for event images, because I am a uniform collector and still very fascinated by it. I use that as what kind of images I will use and try to make things correct. Okay, I think we're going to end the episode here. We're still playing along. I'm also busy working on getting Third Reich Events updated for BlackICE 8. I think they're coming out with 8.2 very soon. And so I'm sort of kind of waiting for 8.2. As well as just fix some bugs with what I've got done already. Okay, thanks for viewing. We will continue this.